Step aside, now. I need to check your cart.
Wait, we didn't take anything.
Don't lie to me. Hands where I can see them.
We forgot to pay. It's a mistake.
Mistake? You think that matters here? Move.
Okay, we understand. We'll cooperate.
Rain-slicked streets reflect the neon of a quiet suburban shopping strip. Inside the store, security cameras hum, unnoticed. Two figures move deliberately through aisles, confident and titled, as if invisible. A scan of their carts tells a story law and policy are meant to prevent. And then a slip, a scan, a soft alarm. In an instant, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, a confrontation that exposed more than theft, revealing fractures in justice, privilege, and human expectation. Before we step inside, consider this: every decision has unseen consequences. Watch closely, because what unfolds here isn't just about stolen goods, it's a mirror of society, power, and accountability. This story demands your attention. Rain drummed against the parking lot asphalt, creating tiny rivers that reflected the neon glow of a suburban shopping strip. The air smelled faintly of wet concrete and exhaust, a late evening calm that often lulled the few customers inside the small convenience store into complacency. But tonight, complacency would be shattered, not by violence, but by the quiet confidence of two outsiders who believed the rules did not apply to them. They moved through the automatic sliding doors with practiced ease, their heads held high, cart rolling behind them like an extension of entitlement. A security camera blinked silently from the ceiling corner and the sensors. At the entrance hummed in their passive vigilance, registering each movement. Most people walked in oblivious. These two, however, seemed aware of every angle, every blind spot, every subtle pattern in the store's rhythm. Behind the counter, Emma, the night supervisor, noticed the careful way the taller of the two scanned the aisles. Not casual browsing, not distracted shopping, precise, deliberate observation. Her experience told her something was off. Employees weren't trained to suspect people based on appearance alone. They were trained to recognize patterns, to notice anomalies. And these two were anomalies. They're casing the place, she whispered to herself, more a note to her instincts than a spoken accusation. She adjusted her headset, fingers brushing the security panel controls, preparing to follow the protocol. Alert silently, monitor closely, document everything. Meanwhile, the migrants moved through the store with fluid confidence, picking items, as if they had ownership rights, placing them in the cart without hesitation. Their conversation was low, clipped, almost rehearsed. The kind that tried too hard to sound casual. Do they always keep the scanner by the aisle? The shorter one asked. Not always. Wait for it. The taller replied, his tone calm, assured. They didn't notice the small scanner light flicker red briefly as an item passed through. They didn't notice the subtle glance Emma sent to the security feed, the slight tension in her shoulders. Her voice, calm and even, came over the headset to the floor staff, Section 3. Keep an eye. No direct confrontation yet. The moment was cinematic in its quiet tension. Ran against glass, fluorescent lights flickering. Softly, the quiet hum of refrigeration units, and the almost imperceptible beeping of sensors. Outside, a car door closed, punctuating the rhythm of expectation. Inside, the two moved like shadows, assuming invisibility, and that assumption, that sense of entitlement, is what carried them to the brink. They believed their awareness of social norms, of cultural nuance, of perceived invisibility, would shield them. They believed the law, the store policies, the cameras, and the staff were elements to be navigated, not enforced. Emma watched. She documented. She felt the tension coil in her chest. The familiar mix of anticipation, ethical responsibility, and professional detachment. She knew the law required evidence, the company required reporting, and her conscience demanded vigilance, every second stretched into the next, the quiet ticking of procedural expectation blending with the charged potential of confrontation. The taller migrant paused by the checkout area, glancing toward the cameras. A subtle hesitation, a minor flicker of doubt. He shook it off, masking it with casual demeanor, whispering to his companion, "Keep moving, nothing is happening." But something was happening. The quiet assumption of invincibility, the unspoken belief that rules apply differently to them, was colliding with a reality far more structured than they had anticipated. And the collision, when it came, would be sudden, procedural, and unforgiving. A sensor polishing the counter, the camera would pan slowly over the store. Aisles of ordinary goods. A cashier polishing the counter, a sensor blinking unnoticed. A cinematic prelude to a moral confrontation. And somewhere between expectation and enforcement, the story as first spark of tension ignited. The beeping was soft at first, almost imperceptible under the hum of refrigerators and the flickering fluorescent lights, but to Emma, it was deafening. A scanner had tripped. Not loud enough to alert customers, but precise enough to signal what her instincts had already guessed. She exhaled slowly, adjusting the headset. Section 3, we have a potential lift. Approach with caution. Don't engage physically, observe, document, and report. The words were procedural, clinical, but her eyes betrayed the tension curling in her chest. The migrants, still moving with that quiet confidence, hadn't he noticed, or if they had, they hadn't he reacted. Their movements remained deliberate, almost rehearsed, like actors performing a role they believed was invisible to the world. From the corner of the aisle, Emma's colleague, a young clerk named Javier, followed the subtle cues, a lingering hand, a cart slightly tilted, the faint sound of a tag brushing against metal. Yeah, they are doing it, he muttered under his breath, barely audible. Emma's voice over the headset was calm but firm. Do not confront yet. Wait for backup. Gather timestamps, note items. Let's do this properly. Time slowed. Every step, every glance, every minor flicker of hesitation was amplified in the silence. The taller migrant stopped near the candy aisle, picking up a pack of chocolate bars, weighing them briefly in his hand as if calculating risk. Do we need to split? Whispered the shorter one. No, came the reply, clipped and precise. Just follow the pattern. Don't draw attention. It was at that moment that the first store policy intersected with human psychology. Emma, trained in loss prevention protocols, recognized the signs of behavioral entitlement, a belief that social norms could be bent, and that consequence could be delayed or avoided. Years of experience told her that confrontation required subtlety. Misstep, and the situation could escalate. The taller one moved toward the checkout, while the shorter one lingered near a display of beverages. Emma saw the split and adjusted her approach. Eyes on both. Keep comms open. Document everything, she instructed over the headset. Javier stepped slightly closer to the beverage aisle. Should we tell them directly? He asked, voice low, nervous. Not yet, Emma replied. Professionalism first. Evidence first. Safety always. The migrants paused at the edge of the aisles, their conversation inaudible to most, but the tension between them visible in posture and subtle gestures. Emma noted every movement in her log. 1942-3, hand lifted toward candy. 1942-8, cart shifted. 1942-11, I glanced toward camera. Each entry was a small anchor of truth, a procedural thread that would hold under scrutiny later. Then came the subtle confrontation. Emma approached, calm but firm, placing herself between the shorter migrant and the exit. Excuse me, she said quietly, almost gently. I need to check these items before you leave. Can you step over here for a moment? A flicker of surprise crossed the taller one's face. He smiled, trying to mask it. Sure, no problem. The pause was cinematic, a heartbeat stretched into eternity. The store lights reflected off wet floors, casting distorted shadows across faces. Silence, except for the distant patter of rain outside and the low hum of the refrigerators. The power dynamic was palpable. One side followed rules, policy, law. The other assumed a moral gray zone existed. That subtle manipulation and perceived entitlement could protect them. Words weren't yet sharp, but the tension spoke in volumes, in posture, breath, and gaze. Emma's voice remained calm. I'm just doing my job. If everything's in order, you'll be free to go. The phrasing was neutral, almost conciliatory, but her eyes watched every micro-expression, every twitch, every hesitation. And then, the first defensive reaction. A hand lingered near the cart's handle, fingers twitching, not yet aggressive, but signaling internal panic. The quiet assumption that they could navigate the rules unchallenged was fracturing. The fluorescent hum of the convenience store was suddenly pierced by the faint but unmistakable crackle of a police radio over Emma's headset. Unit 12, please respond. Potential theft in progress at Cloverfield Market, Section 3. Customer detaining suspects pending officer arrival. Minutes stretched like hours. Outside, rain fell harder, hammering against the asphalt, masking the arrival of tires and sirens. Inside, the air thickened with anticipation, the invisible weight of consequence pressing down on everyone present. The migrants froze mid-step, as the sound of approaching authority registered subconsciously. The taller one's eyes flicked toward the exit, then back toward the aisle, calculated, measuring a rapid inventory of options and perceived escape routes. The shorter one's lips pressed tight, a quiet panic beginning to seep into the previously controlled composure. Emma's voice was calm, almost soothing, but each word carried the steel of procedure. Police are on site. Remain where you are. Keep your hands visible. Follow instructions. She stepped back, allowing the aisles to breathe space for the impending confrontation. 2 officers entered, badges catching the harsh overhead lights. One was senior, Officer Daniels, a 10-year veteran trained in community policing and procedure de-escalation. The other, Officer Lee, newer but sharp, observing every nuance with a forensic intensity. Evening, Daniels said, voice low, firm. We were called regarding a theft. Mind if we check your card? The question was procedural and neutral, but it carried authority. The taller migrant, S hand twitched toward the card handle. It asks nothing. We did take anything? He said, words rushed, a veneer of calm cracking. Daniels. Eyes did flinch. Let's see about that. Standard protocol requires all items be scanned and accounted for. It is routine. Simple. The shorter one, S mouth opened, then closed, as if swallowed by uncertainty. Inside, panic-battled pride, entitlement clashing with the reality of law enforcement. Psychological tension thickened. The mind searches for rationalization, for loophole, for moral exceptions. While the law operates on black and white clarity, the officers moved methodically, following evidence-based procedure. Items in the cart were scanned, one by one. Tags set off soft alarms, a pack of razor blades, 2 bottles of expensive shampoo, a box of chocolate bars. The scanner, S light, pulsed red. Evidence anchored reality. Daniels leaned slightly closer, voice calm but firm. This isn't about punishment yet. It is about verification. These items weren't paid for, correct? The taller one nodded, but the gesture carried the weight of resignation more than admission. We forgot. It was a mistake. Lee's eyes narrowed subtly. Intent matters in law. Mistake is one thing, entitlement is another. Her words were quiet, but the migrants heard them, piercing, precise. Emma's hands hovered over her security logs, documenting timestamps and actions. She felt the moral tension vibrate in the room, the migrant's assumption that minor rules could be bent collided with procedural integrity. She knew every detail mattered not just for company policy, but for potential legal scrutiny. The first officer pulled out his notebook, pen poised. I'm going to need identification. We follow Local Ordinance 38-21, B regarding theft and restitution. This ensures proper documentation. Cooperation now will reduce further complications. The taller one's hand trembled slightly as he reached for his wallet. Pride, panic, and fear warred within him. The shorter one avoided eye contact, focusing on a display of snacks as if they might dissolve his guilt. Silence dominated the store, punctuated by rain, scanner beeps, and the quiet, almost imperceptible clicking of pens on paper. Every gesture, every breath carried weight. This wasn't just a procedural stop, it was a collision of entitlement, expectation, and the unyielding structure of law enforcement. The first cracks had appeared in their quiet assumption of invisibility. Authority was here, uncompromising, and the consequences, financial, legal, and moral, were about to unfold. The store was quiet now, but the air felt heavier than before. Rain had eased outside, leaving glistening puddles that reflected the harsh glow of street lamps. Inside, Emma wiped her hands on her apron, her gaze lingering on the now empty checkout lanes. The migrants had been taken by officers, processed through the station, and released pending further investigation. Yet the tension lingered, like smoke that refuses to dissipate. Javier, the young clerk, leaned against the counter. His voice was soft, almost confessional. I can't stop thinking about it. What if they really didn't understand? Emma shook her head slowly, her own thoughts tangled. It's not about understanding. It's about consequence. Systems exist to enforce rules, to protect businesses, employees, and the public. Entitlement doesn't erase law. Her words were measured, but her eyes betrayed the fatigue of moral labor. Outside, the media had started to stir. A local news crew captured the rain-slicked strip, a quick interview with the store manager. and footage of police lights flashing through the evening fog. Social media picked up the story within hours, hashtags, debates, and polarized opinions proliferating across timelines. Some framed the migrants as victims of overzealous enforcement, others as a stark example of cultural entitlement clashing with local law. The migrants themselves were navigating a parallel storm. In a quiet holding room at the precinct, they reflected on what they had assumed was harmless. The taller one ran a hand through his hair, tension etching lines into his face. "I didn't think it would matter this much," he murmured, voice brittle with disbelief. "In my country, it's not like this. No one watches so closely." His companion, seated beside him, said nothing for a long moment. Then finally, "We thought we could get away with it. We didn't think rules were rules." Law enforcement officers, too, were reflecting on protocol, on bias, on empathy. Daniels reviewed the night's footage, noting the clarity of procedural compliance, but also the subtle human elements, microexpressions, hesitation, attempts to rationalize behavior. "We follow the rules," he said to Lee, "but we also have to understand why people break them. Not to excuse it, but to prevent it in the future." The community's reaction added another layer. Online commentary argued, debated, and often vilified one side or the other. Discussions about cultural integration, entitlement, and systemic responsibility swirled. Emma watched it all with a mixture of detachment and quiet despair. She had done her job, meticulously, ethically, but the moral complexity extended far beyond the store walls. Back at the precinct, the migrants were given resources, legal counsel, restitution guidance, and an explanation of Local Ordinance 38-21B, which defined theft, intent, and restitution responsibilities. Every step of the process was designed to balance accountability with fairness, but the human element, shame, fear, and disbelief, was unavoidable. Emma found herself reflecting late into the night. She thought of the subtle assumptions, the micro-moments of decision-making, and the fragile bridge between expectation and consequence. Rules, she realized, were only as strong as the shared belief in them, and when entitlement ignores that belief, collision is inevitable. The city, too, was taking note. Loss prevention protocols were reviewed, training modules adjusted, and community policing forums scheduled. One incident, small in material value, had triggered a cascade of reflection, policy assessment, and social debate. And yet, the emotional fallout, the sense of mortal reckoning, would linger longer than any procedural fix. Emma closed the store door behind her, the lock clicking into place. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the reflections in the puddles seemed heavier, burdened with the weight of lessons learned the hard way. Weeks had passed since the rain-slicked night at Cloverfield Market, yet the ripple effects of that single encounter extended far beyond the store's walls. Emma walked through the aisles once more, alone this time, the soft hum of refrigeration units filling the quiet void. Every shelf, every scanner, every silent security camera felt like a witness to history, chronicling a collision between entitlement and accountability. The migrants had faced their consequences. Restitution was paid, community service assigned, and their actions documented under Ordinance 38-21B. The legal process had been clear, procedural, and unflinching, a system designed not to punish disproportionately, but to assert societal norms and protect the collective. Yet, beyond the fines and paperwork, the psychological aftermath lingered. Their sense of invincibility had been irrevocably fractured, replaced by a reluctant respect for rules they had once assumed malleable. At the precinct, Officer Daniels reviewed the case File 1 last time. He had written a detailed report, noting compliance with procedural law, the measured response by staff, and the subtle signs of behavioral entitlement. "It's not just about theft," he remarked to Lee. "It's about understanding human behavior before it escalates. One incident can teach us more than 1,000 hypothetical scenarios." Public discourse mirrored that reflection. Local forums debated cultural expectations, the balance between empathy and enforcement, and the subtle ways societal norms intersect with personal choice. The story sparked dialogue about integration, accountability, and the fragile contract between individual behavior and systemic law. What began as a minor theft had evolved into a public lesson on ethics, consequence, and social responsibility. Back at Cloverfield Market, management implemented reforms that went beyond policy manuals. Staff training was updated, emphasizing observation, communication, and psychological nuance alongside procedural rigor. Security systems were enhanced, not merely to catch wrongdoing, but to provide a more comprehensive understanding of behavior patterns and potential risk. The lessons of the night had become institutionalized, the ephemeral moment of tension converted into concrete systemic improvement. Yet, the most profound consequences were internal, human, and moral. Emma reflected on the night repeatedly. On the migrants' assumption of invulnerability, the staff's quiet adherence to protocol, and the officers' balance of authority with empathy. The event had exposed the fractures in social expectation, the subtle biases in perception, and the profound weight of even minor ethical lapses. Justice, she realized, was not a single act of enforcement, but a chain of observation, reflection, and consequence. The migrants themselves faced quiet reckoning. They had been forced to confront their assumptions, privileges, and the reality that actions carry consequences, regardless of intent or expectation. In interviews with social workers and legal counsel, they articulated a mixture of shame, confusion, and reluctant understanding, a moral reflection born not of lecture, but of lived experience. The community watched, too. Lessons were absorbed unevenly, some through empathy, others through judgment. Yet the cumulative effect was undeniable. A single act of theft had prompted training reforms, policy review, psychological reflection, and public dialogue. The narrative extended beyond punishment into education, prevention, and systemic awareness. And in the quiet aftermath, the rain-drenched streets glimmered with more than light. They reflected accountability, human fallibility, and the subtle interplay between law and morality. The collision of entitlement and structure had yielded clarity, not simple victory, but a nuanced understanding of consequence, justice, and the fragile architecture of social trust. Emma stepped outside, the lock clicking behind her, feeling the weight of responsibility lifted slightly, but the moral resonance lingering. Justice, she understood, was rarely satisfying in the dramatic sense. It was quiet, precise, cumulative, a web of actions, reflections, and reforms that, in their sum, kept society functioning. And tonight, like so many nights before, she had witnessed it in motion. The procedural wheels had turned. Restitution completed, reforms enacted, and staff trained anew. Officers debriefed, protocols refined. A minor theft had ignited systemic reflection, highlighting gaps in training, cultural understanding, and procedural enforcement. For the migrants, the lessons were immediate and personal. Pride had met consequence. Entitlement had collided with law. Their worldview, once confident in assumed invisibility, had been irrevocably tempered by reality. For the community, the event became more than a story of theft. It was a mirror reflecting the delicate balance of privilege, expectation, and accountability. Public forums, local media, and social discourse dissected it, not to sensationalize, but to understand. And for those who bore witness, Emma, Javier, Daniels, and Lai, the night remained etched in memory. It was a quiet testament to the complexity of human behavior, the rigor of lawful procedure, and the subtle moral gravity of everyday decisions. In the end, the story concluded not with dramatics or spectacle, but with consequence, systemic reform, moral reckoning, and the fragile reinforcement of trust between law, individuals, and society. Justice had been served, not as a headline, but as a living, reflective process, precise, human, and enduring. The rain had stopped, but the lessons lingered, like puddles catching the light, reflections of choice, consequence, and the quiet power of accountability.